Hey y'all, Dare Judd, the Cowboy Criminologist, coming back to you. So it seems like I just got done paying the NYPD a huge compliment. And then something comes out of New York that just irritates me to no end. Almost forgot my notes. All right, so Alvin Bragg, and if you don't know who he is, he's the district attorney of New York City. And what's the nicest way I can talk about Alvin Bragg? Alvin Bragg is very liberal in his interpretation of absolutely everything. And so when he came into office, he retroactively decided what cases he would and would not prosecute. Okay. Now, this flies contrary to state law, where if a law is on the books, yeah, a prosecutor does have a certain latitude on how to prosecute certain cases. But the issue is when you can't draw that fine line, when you say low-level crime will not be prosecuted or will be handled in a restorative justice setting or any other nonsense, what you're creating there is you're creating a pushback. And that pushback is, okay, well, if he's not going to prosecute me for having this much meth, this much heroin, if I'm not going to be prosecuted for a theft under this amount, if I'm not going to be prosecuted for whatever, well, when will I be prosecuted? How far can I actually push the needle before enough is enough? Okay. And you might say, well, those are minor crimes. All right. Well, or small crimes. And I've always said there's no such thing as a small crime, just small criminals. The issue is, and this recently happened, so this happened at kind of the ideal time for me to talk about it. 2 police officers were attacked by a group of illegal immigrants. They beat the officers severely. When the illegal immigrants were rounded up, they were sent to jail, and I think 4 or 5 of them were almost immediately released. In fact, there's a photo going around, it's pretty famous now, of one of the illegal immigrants flipping off a reporter and everything. And now Alvin Bragg is very quiet about his policies. And I think it's interesting because, you push for cashless bail. You push for decriminalizing certain offenses, and it just becomes mayhem. Now, y'all, if you think I'm picking on New York, I'm not. If it feels like I'm pushing on New York City, yeah, maybe a little bit. But New York City follows a pattern, okay? They were one of the first cities to suspend qualified immunity for police officers. They were huge in very vocal about defunding police. But then you had places that followed suit. Detroit, Chicago, St. Paul, Minneapolis, basically the entire state of California, which, why do I not bring up California? Guys, sometimes it's just too easy. All right. There's picking low-hanging fruit, and then there's just rutting around in the ground. Okay. So that's why I'm leaving California alone. Don't worry. They'll get their turn. All right. But when you set these policies up, you have to be accountable for when they fall back on you, when they backfire. And this has backfired in just, epic fashion. If Homer was alive today, he would write about the failure that is the prosecutor of New York City right now. All right. And then you have Kathy Hochul, who is now wanting to roll back this cashless bail because it's an absurd policy. Yet that wasn't her opinion when she campaigned. In fact, she had no opinion about it at all. And that's very typical of left-leaning politicians who are just kind of stepping into the political climate, especially in a high-ranking office like being a governor. And what they're doing is they're testing the waters. If the policy is successful, they can get behind it. Which, she has made comments about how great it is and how forward-thinking the city of New York is. And when you look at the crime rate skyrocketing after New York City had at one point had lowered its violent crime to, it was astronomically low for a city of 8 million people, and it was a tremendous job and a team effort on behalf of the NYPD and prosecutors. It absolutely was. And now that's kind of fallen by the wayside, and it's gone down. So, Kathy Hochul demanding that these illegal immigrants be brought to justice, I have an issue with it. To me, it comes off as insincere and condescending, considering she was a champion of defunding the police and actually has ties, I believe, to a group to a lobby that was set up adamantly wanting to defund police. And if you'll remember, because as the Cowboy Criminologist, I don't just study crime, I study history, because you can't really separate those two. The New York City Police Department took a loss of billions of dollars. I think they took if I remember right, they took a $3 billion hit in their annual operating budget because they defunded the police, right? Because that's a good idea. When they defunded the police and they did all these things, crime just shot straight up. And the next budget year, they had to increase the budget, not only, I think, $3 billion to replace what they had lost, but an additional $3 billion to combat the rising crime that they were now having to deal with. And they were having to pay more in bonuses to get people to come on. They were having to pay retention bonuses. They were having to upgrade equipment. They're having to do all these things because of defund the police. All right. So Kathy Hochul wanting these immigrants held accountable and wanting answers as to why they were allowed out on bail so quickly. It's condescending, it's insincere, and it's a whole lot like closing the barn door after the cow's already gotten out into the pasture. All right. It doesn't make any sense to try to do this now. And that is the problem with reactive policies. They're always made in a knee-jerk fashion. There's never any true understanding or appreciation for what the actual underlying cause is. And that's where you get these knee-jerk policies. Oh, well, this happened, so we're going to start doing this and this and this and this. And it's like, oh, whoa. That's not going to work. No. This is the way it's going to work. Okay. All right. Do you want me to arrest that guy walking around with the needle sticking out of his arm and the machete that he's swinging around? No. That's okay. He's not hurting anybody. Oh, well, he's just made contact. Now he's actively slashing at somebody with that machete. We should probably use deadly force. Well, don't use deadly force to stop him. When you tie law enforcement's hands in how they're able to do their job, a lot of times good officers are just going to sit back and watch the fireworks because they didn't create the situation. They didn't create the problem. And it does sound bad, but let me explain it. When a bad policy is rolled out, good officers will often sit back and go, this is a bad idea. And they're often accused for not getting with the program and one thing or another, being negative about the job, being negative about the agency. And that's not the case. They're negative about one specific aspect, in this case, a horrible policy. And so they will sit back and they will watch the policy fail and they will say, I told you this was going to happen. Now this is what we have to do to fix it, which now is going to cost you more time, more money, more resources, more of everything than it would if you had just quit being a snowflake for 5 seconds, dried your little saccharine tears, and put your big boy pants on and dealt with the situation as it is instead of as you want it. Cowboy got his soapbox out today. Started doing some preaching up in here. All right. So Hochul, Bragg, all of these politicians are talking about accountability. Accountability is a two-way street. If you're going to hold officers and criminals accountable, all right, you have to understand that the policies you put in place that either help or hinder either side of the law, you have to own those consequences. And I have yet to hear any politician come forward and say defunding the police was a huge mistake. Tying the police's hands was a huge mistake. Cash bail is a huge mistake. All right, look, I can quote you the Eighth Amendment. All right. No unreasonable punishment, no excessive fines or bail. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do you need a $50,000 bond on $500 worth of property damage? No, you don't. All right. Do you need a $500,000 bond on somebody who has raped and tortured a child? No, you don't. You need a $5 million bond. And you want to make sure it's high enough that that dude cannot get out, because I promise you, he is going to skip the country. All right. You have to take these things on their whole. All right. The idea of the bond system or the bail system is to make sure that people make their court date. Okay. If they don't make the court date, they forfeit the bail that they put up for bond. Okay. But at the same time, you have a duty to protect the public. And one of the things that just irritates me more than anything is finding out that somebody went out and committed a violent crime and they were out on bond, they were out on probation, or they were on probation, or they were on parole. All right. That doesn't make any sense. All right. And when I do my qualified immunity video, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So y'all hold me to that, okay? But I just kind of wanted to give you my quick thought on the fact that if you want criminal justice reform, you've got to look at policies and think about how they're going to affect things in the future. Because I promise you, it wasn't a criminologist who wrote the cashless bail policy. All right. Y'all stay safe, love each other, take care of each other. I wish y'all just a wonderful week, and I will see you later.